funny, when I was going through things, I found a 1969 rate card. And they were getting $30 for 30 seconds of my show, which certainly gives Citadel and Clear Channel something to shoot for.
Holy crap!
Sorry, Andy. From 69 to 92, I worked for 7 general managers, and there's a pattern. One would be a huge spender, the next guy would be cheap, then another spender, and so on. But I'd just like to acknowledge them. Jim Arcara was the first GM, big spender. Warren Potash, anybody here worked with Warren? Then you know that he was no Jim Arcara. Then of course there was Dick Rackavan, who was another big spender. Aaron Daniels, the Ayatollah, he wasn't really a big spender, but he was a conservative spender. Jim Long was another cheap one. And then we had Mitch Dolan. He's like Powerball with Mitch, you know. And finally, Karen Woodbine. Now, I want to honor the program directors because I wouldn't have survived all of those years without some of them. Al Herskovitz was the one who hired me, and I think he was probably the best program director I ever worked for. He gave me my start, and he taught me three things. That was one. Actually, that was number 4. Number 1, he said, always remember, Providence is Ann and Hope, chowder and clam cakes, and aim everything at a 13-year-old mind. So Ann and Hope has been replaced by Walmart. People still eat the chowder and clam cakes. And here I am doing things with my 13-year-old mind. Some of the other PDs that we worked for, after Al Herskovitz, 2 PDs together, JimmyGray and Davy Jones. We interim PD'd PRO for 3 months. Ironically, the station had the best ratings in its history at that particular time. But going back to GM number 2, who was rather cheap, we didn't get the job. That's when they hired Jay Clark, program director number 3. Then we had Dave McNamee, Gary Berkowitz, Jack O'Brien, Gary Berkowitz again, Mike Osborne, then Tom Cuddy, Paul Cannon, and one other PD that I worked for over at another station at CTK, Rick Everett, Rickles. A final PD and a greater guy you never meet. The PDs, of course, Berkowitz gave me my start on FM. Everybody thinks he hired me, but it really wasn't him. It was Dick Rackavan why I went to Pro FM. Funny little story was I was working for Dave McNamee, and he was a practical joker. And you got to go home. ABC wants to go home, right? Dave McNamee was a practical joker, and he didn't drive for some reason. We always figured it had something to do with alcohol. So one day he asked me, for 2 or 3 weeks he was telling me that he wanted me to go on the midnight to 6 shift to do a Larry Blick type show like BZ in Boston. And of course I didn't want to go back to midnight to 6, I'd already been there. And he kept it up for 2 or 3 weeks. Then one day he asked for a ride to the airport to pick up his buddy from Texas. And when we went down there, it was evident as we're driving to the airport that McNamee had been drinking. And the guy we picked up had a suitcase with KLIF bumper stickers on it and a deep radio voice. And McNamee says, I can't believe you're picking up your replacement. Kind of a little slap, but nonetheless, I immediately the next day called up WHDH. They had a midday opening. The guy said, send me out a tape. Long story short, 2 days later he called me up and he says, when can you start? We need you for Monday. I said, I can't do that. I have to give this company at least 2 weeks notice. Unfortunately, I didn't know that Dave McNamee was outside the hallway and heard the whole entire conversation. And it came that particular day, it was a Friday, and at 12 o'clock, McNamee said, I'm going, and as he did a lot, you're in charge this weekend. Holland used to do the music clocks and so on and so forth. I do the contest, and whoever would call in sick, I'd cover for. So I said, no, wait, I gotta talk to you. And he left, and he went down the hall, and I went down the hall, and I had dead air. So then I had to wait for Dick Rackavan, the GM, to come in. He finally came in about 2:30. He was pretty good too. And I told him, I said, I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice. And he said, what for? And I said, well, I want to do the all-night show. So he didn't know anything about that. So he called McNamee back in. And McNamee said, I was just joking with him because he overreacts. And he said, I can't help myself. But it was like a 3-week joke. So he says, well, now this guy's got a job at HDH. So Rackavan said, there's no way you're going to go work at HDH. They're a bunch of drunks, and you can't work for them. So he says, you're going to go downstairs and do mornings. And for about 6 or 8 months, I kept telling Berkowitz, I don't want to do Pro FM, because it was WPRO-FM is 92, Pro FM is WPRO-FM. And that's all it was yelling. But anyway, I went. And ever since then, thanks to the tutelage of Gary Berkowitz and Tom Cuddy, 2 great radio program directors, I had a very successful career there, and I want to thank them for that. The thing is, all of the other radio stations, I worked alone all the time. All the other radio stations had teams. JV was Mike Waite, Jeff Daniels, Salty and Larry were upstairs. Subsequently, there was Jones and Jones. Gary degraded Light with the 12 Apostles. Carolyn Fox with Rudy. And every time I went to the GM to get a female co-host, I got the same answer. Rackets would say, if it's not broken, we're not going to fix it. And Aaron would say, well, we're paying you too much money, we can't afford it. If you want to take the money out of your pocket, which I didn't. So what I did is I invented people, came up with characters, which was no problem because all through high school and junior high, I came up with imaginary friends. Had 5 of them, and 2 of which I'm still on speaking terms with. So that's what led to Randy Cuny, Gio, who's also being inducted tonight. A man of 100 voices and $51 bills in his pocket. We also had Artie Tepp, who wrote, I didn't write his stuff, he wrote Tabloid Man and Little Timmy. But we had Rhoda Blavitt, the world's most renowned critic, gossip, and all-around snoop. Randy Cuny, his wife Gwen, his 2 nerd sons, Ben and Ralph, which were really precursors to Niles and Fraser Crane. And of course, there was Clem, who handled all the space shot missions when NASA was big. And together we had one big happy family, and they all helped me in my career, and I appreciate everything that they did. And I wouldn't have been anything without them. And I want to thank them for the time they spent and what they offered and helped me to become here for this recipient tonight. So I thank them very much. I just want to make one last thing. Every time you hear this at the Academy Awards, you say, oh God. But I also want to thank my 2 daughters. I used to use them as material, stress 1 and stress 2, that protect their identity by not using their names. And I know they probably didn't like it. I was never there for 13 years for breakfast with them. Never took them to school in the morning. And a lot of times they couldn't have the sleepovers because Dad got up at 3:30, so they missed out on some things. And Dad being kind of weird and having 3 ex-wives, that probably wasn't very easy for them either. But I'm very proud the fine ladies they've turned out to be, and I'm as pleased with them as I am to receive this award. Thank you very much.